Hey guys, so it's me Alexis. Welcome back to my astrology channel, and today I'm going to be talking about the Venus in Sagittarius. So before I go ahead and start the video, like always, I will be putting up a poll sometime after the video is posted so that you guys can kind of vote for the next moon sign. I will let you guys know now that I think it's only Cancer and Pisces left, so we only have 2 weeks left, which means this series is about to finish, which means, oh my god, I have to do a new series on this channel. And always when it comes to the end of a series, I'm just kind of like, oh my god, what kind of video should I do next? So yeah, if you guys have, I bet you guys have cool ideas. You guys can share them down below in the comment section if you guys know what I should cover or want me to cover. And yeah, I already talked about the poll. And I am also an astrologer who sells astrology and tarot readings and consultations. So if you guys like my content and you're interested in having something personal with me, I will put the link in the description below so that you guys can kind of schedule something. Also, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, let's go ahead and start the video. So if you guys been watching my videos now, you guys know that when it comes to these sign placement videos, I always start with the composition of the sign. I always start with their element, their modality, and all of that good jazz. And I will still do it for this video. Don't get me wrong, I will. But I'm gonna put this disclaimer out, and I'm just gonna say it because I feel like I need to say this really clearly, because I see this comment or opinion made so often when it comes to Sagittarius Venus in particular, and also Gemini Venus. But I need to make this disclaimer. There's an opinion that Sagittarius Venus, since they have this struggle with commitment, they're also cheaters. And I just want to say that that opinion is a pretty bad take, and honestly, to be blunt with you, it's pretty stupid. I mean, let's think about this for a moment. A lot of people tend to complain about how sun signs are generalized and how astrology is more than just your sun sign, which is a very valid argument that I agree with. But then these same people will kind of turn around and be like, oh, if you have a Sagittarius Venus, you're a cheater. And it's ironic because the sun transits faster than Venus. Venus moves a little bit slower. So when you're making a statement about Sagittarius Venuses being cheaters, you're pretty much generalizing more people than people who have their sun in Sagittarius. I just want to make that disclaimer because I think a lot of people try to find reasons for bad actions in astrology, which is, I think, a very human thing, but also not a very right thing to do either, and it's just not fair. Can you imagine a baby being born in a hospital and they have their Venus in Sagittarius, and you just point your finger at them and you're just kind of like, yep, you're a cheater just because you just happen to be born with a Venus in Sagittarius? Sucks. So that's my whole spiel. That's my whole little disclaimer. Let's kind of get back into, what the heck is a Sagittarius? So Sagittarius, Sagittarius is a fire mutable sign ruled by Jupiter. So it's cool because fire is going to be hot and dry, and when you have something that's hot and dry, I think of an element that likes to manifest externally and they like to distinguish. So when you see fire, you can tell that fire is fire because they like to stand out. They're very warm, they're very dramatic in a sense, and you just can't not notice them. And that's kind of how their dryness kind of manifests, because just by the way that they're acting externally, you know that they're a fire sign because they are really able to separate themselves very well. So that's fire. They're also known to be marked by passion and a lot of energy. Now, Sagittarius is mutable, which means, Sagittarius is very flexible. They're open to many ideas. They're open-minded. They're very flexible. They like to go with the flow. They like to kind of accept the way things are and kind of reform with flexibility and by going with the flow. Mutable signs are not really good at initiating or maintaining things, but they are good at accepting things as they are. So that's mutable for you. And on top of that, Sagittarius is going to be ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is going to be the planet of abundance, opportunities. I say good luck with a very strong caveat because, Jupiter's not your genie, but Jupiter in astrology is seen to be as a benefic, and benefics are pretty much planets that are kind of your buddies. They kind of give you the good stuff in life, but they don't guarantee you the good stuff. They can present you the opportunity for the good stuff. They don't guarantee it for you. So that's the caveat there. Now, when you put all that together and you put that into the context of Venus, which is the planet of relationships, connections, luxury, pleasure, aesthetics, when you put Sagittarius and you put that into Venus, I feel like with whatever Sagittarius touches, Sagittarius makes anything bigger. It's kind of, when I think of Sagittarius, I think of a balloon. So kind of think of that in the context of love. You kind of sit there and you're kind of like, I wonder what a Sagittarius Venus is like. And if anything, like if I had to visually think of a love story with the Sagittarius Venus, it would feel like an open field with no end. It's like, that's kind of the feeling, like with this, and that's kind of, you know, the love environment that a Sagittarius would want. When I think of Sagittarius Venus, I think one of the most beautiful analogies that I can kind of think of with Sagittarius in a positive way is kind of like that whole butterfly story. Like if you really love something, like you can let it, you can let it go. So for example, there's this whole little, you know, analogy that I've heard from a friend. It probably came from something where basically, you know, you have a butterfly in your hand and you love the butterfly so much. However, you know, it's a butterfly. A butterfly is gonna eventually fly away. However, if you're too possessive and you crush the butterfly, you'll kill it. Sagittarius is that one Venus sign that will let the butterfly fly away and keep the butterfly alive. Because if there's anything that a Sagittarius Venus is really good at, they're really good at giving freedom. They're really good at giving someone their personal space because like when it comes to, like, you know, self-expression, a Sagittarius Venus will love a person when they are their most free, because I guess for a Sagittarius Venus, you're kind of like, that's the way you are. When you are gifted with the most freedom possible, then you will have the freedom to be who you are. And because of that, that's kind of how a Sagittarius Venus will kind of, you know, evaluate you when it comes to love. Because, you know, when anyone is stuck in a very narrow, restricted, you know, small environment and they don't really have that much leg room, you can kind of, you know, see someone act differently as opposed to them acting in an open space. And for Sagittarius Venus, their fair metric of evaluating somebody is going to be in those open spaces where they are able to be free. Capricorn's a little bit different. They kind of, you know, like the smaller space is better, but Sagittarius wants the bigger space. And because of that, like if you're in love with a Sagittarius and you're not really used to that space, you can feel kind of lost. So for people who are dating a Sagittarius Venus, sometimes they can sit here and they're kind of like, there's a lot of room in this relationship and it's a little bit scary. And add to the whole, you know, expansive Jupiter-ness and all of the fire there, sometimes like it can feel a little bit chaotic. So for someone who likes something a little bit more structured and something a little bit more smaller in a relationship, they can feel so overwhelmed or maybe perhaps scared of the freedom that Sagittarius can provide. So it really just kind of depends what kind of person you are, because, you know, if you do better in like open spaces, great. If you like something a little bit more structured, Sagittarius might have to work a little bit harder to provide you that. Now with every, you know, Venus sign, there's going to be pros, there's going to be cons. I kind of pretty much stated the pros. The con is that, you know, with open space, sometimes things can get a little bit distant, and Venus is the planet of connections. And, you know, Venus, you know, whenever you need a connection, the best way to keep something connected is to keep them close together. However, you know, with Sagittarius being the sign of distance and the sign of, like, you know, open spaces, you know, the connection gets a little bit weaker as you get further and further and further away. And while the justification for personal space is valid and fine, there is something kind of, you know, difficult whenever two people are a little bit too far away from each other to kind of keep a solid, you know, connection. I mean, the first thing that I can think of is like long distance relationships. They're difficult for a reason, because we have two people that are very, very far away. Now, and because of that, you know, sometimes for people who are dating, you know, people with Venus and Sagittarius, they can kind of feel like they're not really cared for. They can kind of feel like, you know, they're not being loved enough. And I don't think that's the case. I just really feel like the distance is just way too far, to the point where, like, you know, maybe the Sagittarius is providing what is your, you know, what's in your love language, but like it's really too far away to like receive, so it doesn't feel as great, so therefore there should be some closeness. However, I think the biggest turnoff for a Venus in Sagittarius is, you know, not having their own personal space and not letting them have the ability to be themselves outside of the relationship. I think, you know, this need to be yourself outside of the relationship kind of shows how, you know, how Sagittarius Venus people are really good at letting go. And it's really like, you know, societally counterintuitive, because we live in a culture where we try really hard to like hold things on. And when Sagittarius kind of counters that, people kind of freak out and they're just kind of like, oh my God, Sag, you don't even know how to commit. And my question for those people is like, you know, like, yeah, I guess they didn't commit, but what should you commit to? Because if the relationship isn't going to work in the long run and you already foresee that, it might be better to break it off now than to let it get worse later, you know? Like, if you know the truth and you're not letting hope cloud your relationship, then yeah, you can let it go. And I think that's okay, and I don't think that's non-committal. Another thing, you know, in order to kind of like attract a Venus in Sagittarius, it's not a tall order. It's a tall order if you're boring. So, you know, first rule, don't be boring. If you are narrow-minded and you don't really, you know, go out of your way to try different things, if you're not very cultured, if you don't have a weird hobby, if you're not remotely interesting, I mean, like, people could argue, well, yeah, that could like apply to all of the signs. It could be true, but like Sagittarius has a pretty tall list. If you're boring and you're stupid, a Sagittarius will not like you. They will really think you're boring, and they might even poke fun at you because, you know, maybe you being irritated would be more fun than you just being normal. So that's one thing. You have to be funny. You have to have a good sense of humor. And 3, I think one of the coolest things about a Sagittarius Venus is that they tend to be attracted to learning experiences. For a Sagittarius Venus, they're always going to be attracted to someone who could be different from them, or not always, but like someone that could at least teach them something. Like, teaching and learning is kind of a component or required component in a Venus and Sagittarius relationship, because at the end of the day, like, the goal in a relationship is to gain something. It could be, you know, emotional comfort, you know, perfect for a Cancer Venus, or maybe a sense of independence for an Aries Venus. But, you know, what does a Sagittarius want? For a Sagittarius, they want their relationships to be a learning experience. So they can't leave a relationship learning nothing. They have to learn something. They have to learn something new about the person, or the person has to teach them something. And, you know, that in a way is kind of how a Venus and Sagittarius kind of guarantees stimulation in a relationship, because I will say that a Venus and Sagittarius person could easily get bored, and you gotta, you know, keep them entertained. And if you're not a boring, stupid person, you're in good hands. And in return, a Venus and Sagittarius person could provide that fun for you. They can provide that adventure for you. They could be reckless with you. Like, with a Venus and Sagittarius, what they're really good at is providing unforgettable experiences. So even if you do have a bad break with a Venus and Sagittarius, at least you can look back at your experiences with them and be like, yeah, I'm never gonna forget that experience, you know, for better or worse. So yeah, that is pretty much my take for the Venus and Sagittarius. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Again, I appreciate you guys so much for watching my content. Like, literally, like, it just means the world to me. And honestly, seeing the comments and seeing how people, you know, share their experiences as, you know, their own Venus sign, or sharing their experiences with someone else with their Venus sign, like, that stuff is fascinating. And, you know, you guys are interesting. If you guys ever feel like you're boring, like, you know, shut up, you are interesting. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next week with the next Venus sign.